How much has your business been hit this past year?
Oh, it's been very material. It's the worst thing I've seen in my 25-year career. But I'm not the only industry like that too. It's just the year that it has been with coronavirus.
Now, you've been quite outspoken on border closures, particularly recently. To what extent would you say these closures have derailed consumer confidence?
Well, I think that's the issue. I mean, we live in a developed country where people plan and strategize, and to suddenly open and close ad hoc is very difficult for people to have confidence, be able to move around, mobility, and do things. I think the key point here is that not enough credit is given to the state governments for how they've managed this. So particularly New South Wales, they've demonstrated time and time again they have the resources and the know-how to manage this. Take the most recent outbreak. And it's not just New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia has had the same outbreaks. But the fact is that I have a good understanding that not only do they have great tracking and tracing abilities, but they've got pop-up testing, but all the states can manage 50 to 100 new community infections a day. And again, this is all about, at the end of the day, with suppression to make sure we had enough hospital beds. That's clearly very successful, and they are successful at what they do. And I think it's time that both the mainstream media and the public hold the government to a much higher account to say, well, if you've got the resources, which after all are taxpayer funded, do your job, manage it, and get that balance right, because they do have the resources and they've demonstrated over and over they can do it. And I think the economy and confidence will be a lot better for it.
Yeah, you've just mentioned how the state governments have been handling this and praising them, but the Queensland public voted overwhelmingly in support of Anastasia Palaszczuk's tough stance on borders. Would you not say that justifies her to continue that stance?
Like I said before, I think all the government's done a great job to point, but now when you look at the infection rates, if you look at yesterday, the community infection rates, 1 in 5 million people. That's a very, very rare outcome to get infected. So we've just got to get some objectivity and some balance back to get the balance between health and the economy. And I would say that, again, I'll just keep repeating what I've said, they have the know-how, the resources there. They have specific resources to track and trace and to pop-up tests, and it's been very successful. So we'd rather see them do their job, be accountable for their job and do that to get that balance right between managing the virus and leaving the economy open. It's very skewed to one way, and it's become very political, it appears.
The Tourism and Transport Forum will be pushing for a long-term support package when it meets with Dan Tehan today. I believe that meeting's currently underway. What would you like to see?
Well, just some support, I think. So clearly, there's some industries that have done very well out of this. But for us, we've had to put so many people off, and we've still got people on part-time. And, the commitment we're making to our staff is that we want to bring people back to full hours, full pay, and also re-employ a lot of people that we had to put off. The only way we can do that is if we have consistency in borders staying open. And we can be very successful if all the borders do stay open, which will allow us to employ hundreds of people very quickly. But it's very difficult to go and employ hundreds of people knowing that the next day they can close the borders for another month. And it's very, very difficult to plan. It's very difficult to give a surety, not just to our staff, but some of our customers are saying the same thing. All they want is just an economic security so they can actually go and conduct their business efficiently and effectively.
Well, just on that, JobKeeper, the rate's due to drop. I believe it's January 4 from $1,200 to $1,000 a fortnight for that top tier. What do you make of that? Do you believe that it should have been extended out for longer, or would you be happy to see it continue to go? I know there's a lot of mixed views on this one particularly.
Look, I've never wanted any handouts from the government. I think that's very clear from my point of view in terms of our company. But what is very important is if they're going to reduce that pay, they've got to also be responsible for letting the economy open so you've got the chance to get back what you've lost in terms of revenues and profitability to justify that. And I think that's the most important point for governments to take on board. Again, be accountable for what you're doing. Again, you have the resources and in all states pretty much have demonstrated in the last 3 or 4 months a great ability with the resources they have to manage this. Just do your job and manage it so that we can all, again, recover and be prosperous for the benefit of the country. And I think that's the key point. The worst thing they could do was drop it away and still ad hoc open and close borders because of a few infections around the country. That's just not commercially sustainable or viable.
And finally, you're in corporate travel. This pandemic's proven that many businesses can actually cope most of the time without face-to-face meetings. I think one report earlier this month suggested airline business trips could fall permanently by almost as much as 40%. How concerned are you?
Oh, not at all. We've been through a number of pandemics. We're in New Zealand, Queensland, WA, and we've seen what we've always seen. And then the facts are very simple. When people feel safe to travel, there's no quarantine. It bounces back very, very quickly in a matter of 4 weeks. And in those states, we're actually running harder than last year, like for like. So also even just Sydney and Melbourne, just again, the impact on the economy that's so underrated. People talk about holidays, but forget the corporate activity that drives an economy. You know, from December 4 or 5 when I opened Sydney and Melbourne, we saw a 50% bounce in domestic travel in Australia just in 1 week. It's extraordinary. So there's clearly pent-up demand, and I think good companies understand that sustainable advantage is about, you know, seeing your supply chain, seeing your customers and seeing your people, and things like this video conference we're on today and this morning just assist. They're more effective than a phone call, but nothing beats face-to-face, and we're seeing that in the data as when people do feel safe and there's no quarantine to travel.
Jamie Pherous, thanks very much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks again.